Welcome back to my channel. If you are visiting my channel for the first time, you are also highly welcome. In this lecture, we will be looking at the side identification of the humerus. I've put up a lecture on the humerus. If you not check up that lecture, please kindly go and do so. But for the purpose of this class, we would be focusing on how to identify the humerus of the right and also of the left side. In case we are asked during our practical exam, we would be able to easily identify whether the humerus given to us is of the right or the left side. Look at this image below here. This is where we have the humerus, and it is important for students to be able to identify whether this humerus is of the right or of the left side. And this is what this lecture will be unfolding. So ride on with me. In identifying whether the humerus given is of the right or of the left side, it is important for us to know the true anatomical position of the humerus. So anatomical position is very important in determining the side of the humerus. It is important for us to be able to place the humerus in its correct anatomical position. And there are some factors that should be considered in establishing this. The first thing that should be considered is the head of the humerus. The head of the humerus is said to be medially directed. We've highlighted this in our previous lecture on the humerus. We said that the head is directed medially. The humerus is seen to fit into the glenoid cavity of the scapula. The glenoid cavity of the scapula is an indentation that is created on the lateral side of the scapula. Because this indentation is on the lateral region of the scapula, and the head of the humerus will be fixing into it to form the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint. This is why the head of the humerus needs to be directed medially, and this is understandable. So the head of the humerus is what is harrowed here in this image. You can see that this head is directed medially so that it can perfectly fit into the glenoid cavity of the scapula, because the sole essence of the head of the humerus is to create the shoulder joint. Other factors that will be considered when the head is directed medially is also that it is slightly upward and also backward. This slight upward direction and also backward direction is for it to perfectly align and be placed into the glenoid cavity of the scapula. It is also important that we check out for the tubercles. We know that towards the proximal region of the humerus, we have two tubercles. We have the lesser tubercle and the greater tubercle. The lesser tubercle is medially directed, while the greater tubercle is laterally directed. And this is what is projected here in this image. So when we look at these features at the upper region of the humerus, it is important that we place these distinct features in their correct anatomical position. Then going to the inferior region of the humerus, we know we have the trochlea and also the capitulum. In the distal region of the humerus, around the lower part, we have the trochlea, and this is what is harrowed here in black. The trochlea is like a pulling, and it is seen to extend through the anterior and posterior surfaces of the humerus. And on the lateral side is where we have the capitulum. So the capitulum is seen as a rounded eminence that is located around the lateral region of the trochlea. The capitulum is seen to receive the head of the radius. This is where it creates the humeroradial joints. We've also tried to highlight this also in our lecture on humerus. The trochlea is seen to fit into the trochlear notch of the ulna, and this is where it forms the humeroulnar joint. You can see that the two bones that are located in the forearm region, which include the ulna and also the radius, are also seen to create connection points with the specific structures around the distal region of the humerus. And this is where we have the creation of the trochlea and also the capitulum, where they fit into the ulna and also radius respectively. If you look at this lower image on this other side, this is where we have the trochlea here, harrowed in white. And on this other side here, this is where we also have the trochlea. You can see that these two projections shows the anterior and posterior surfaces of the humerus. And this is enough to tell us that the trochlea extends from the anterior side to the posterior region. While the capitulum that is located on this lateral region is seen to be limited to just the anterior surface. The capitulum is not seen to extend to the posterior region. And this is why we cannot see it on this other side. So if we go back to this image here, we say this is the trochlea and this is the capitulum. This should tell us that this is the anterior surface, and behind we have the posterior surface. So let's look at some other distinct features that we need to project to be able to place the humerus in its correct anatomical position. The fossae are also very important for us to project. The fossae are projections that are created around the inferior region of the humerus. We have two in the anterior region and we have just one behind. If you look at this image at this lower side, this is the anterior surface and this is the posterior surface. So we should expect to have two depressions in the anterior surface. And this includes the coronoid fossa. This is the coronoid fossa that is positioned medially. And on the lateral side, we have the radial fossa. The coronoid fossa and the radial fossa are both seen in the anterior surface of the humerus. If you go behind, we have the olecranum fossa. This is the olecranum fossa here that is arrowed here at this point. So you have these depressions created to accommodate different structures. If you go back to the anterior surface where we have two fossae, we have the coronoid fossa here, which creates a depression to accommodate the coronoid process. We know that the ulna has a coronoid process in its anterior region, and this is what fits into this depression. While on the lateral side, we have the radial fossa. The radial fossa receives the head of the radius when the hand is fully flexed. So you can see that these depressions are not created for fun or for fancy. They are created to receive different structures or processes around the forearm region. If you go back to the posterior surface, where we say we have one fossa, which is the olecranum fossa, this depression is also created to receive the olecranum process of the ulna. We know that olecranum process of the ulna is a projection that is created around the posterior region of the ulna. And at full extension, the olecranum process of the ulna is seen to fix into the olecranum fossa. So you see that we have fossae created around the inferior region of the humerus, both in the anterior and posterior surfaces. And these are created to accommodate different structures when the upper limb is fully flexed and fully extended. So this is the basis behind the creation of these fossae. And it is also important for us to place them in their correct anatomical position. We already have the background knowledge that the anterior surface is seen with two of the fossae, which are the coronoid and the radial fossa. While at the posterior surface of the humerus, we have just the olecranum fossa. So it is important for us to be able to also establish this and place them also in their correct anatomical position. So if you look at this image here, on this side, this is where we have the coronoid fossa, and this is where we have the radial fossa. This is the medial side, and this is the lateral side. The radial fossa is seen on the lateral side, while the coronoid fossa is seen on the medial side. This is to tell us that because we have two fossae at this lower part, is to tell us that this is the anterior surface. Then if you take this humerus and then place it in its correct anatomical position, we would be able to establish that this is the left humerus. It is also important for us to add that the position of the capitulum generally can be used to stage or do a side identification of the humerus. If the position of the capitulum is on the right side, it means that it is the right humerus. And if it is positioned on the left side, it means it is the left humerus. Let's take a look at this image. This is where we say we have the anterior surface because we have two fossae here projected at this lower region. We have the coronoid and also the radial fossae. And if you look at it at this lateral region, we have the projection that we refer to as the capitulum. If you place this image in its correct anatomical position, you will see that the capitulum is located on the left side. And because it is located on the left side, this will further confirm that this humerus is of the left side. But if the capitulum is located or positioned on the right side, it means that the humerus is of the right side. So we can also use the position of the capitulum to further confirm the staging of the humerus, whether it is of the right or of the left side. I hope you find this video useful and thanks for watching.